So when I was in college, I didn't have the walk of shame that most of you are used to hearing about. Unlike most of my friends whose walk of shame was the next morning, mine was always that night when I would walk home alone like a sad, masturbating panda. It seemed like there was some magical trick to engaging women that I was supposed to learn in sex ed, but my high school didn't offer sex ed, so I never learned that thing. But my senior year of college on Halloween, I ended up talking to this woman who I'd had a crush on for all 4 years of college. Her name was Dana. She was my everywhere person. It was because I saw her everywhere. And this was great because she was very, very good looking, and I liked looking at her, and I wanted to kiss her and hug her and maybe someday be physically intimate with her. And for the last 4 years of college, I had this idea in my head that she and I had made eye contact countless times across these crowded bars, but in truth, I was probably just reenacting the hopeful nerd part from the romantic comedies from the 80s. So on all those other nights, I was Ducky, but on this night, I was Blaine, because on this night, I was just drunk enough to be confident. And I walked up to Dana, and I looked into her eyes, and I said, "I've been seeing you for the last 4 years." And she looked into my eyes, and she said, "I don't know what that means." And I said, "Me neither." And she giggled, and we proceeded to hit it off completely. And so we spent the rest of the night talking, and I continued to drink my way to whatever baseline of confidence needed to exist, which also amounted to a certain amount of physical numbness. And the moment arrived when I looked into her eyes and I said, "Do you want to get out of here?" And she said, "Yes." And so we walked out of the bar, and as we're walking out of the bar, it feels like there's a piece of gum stuck to the bottom of my shoe, so I do what any smart drunk person, as if such a thing exists, would do. I start swatting wildly and blindly at the bottom of my foot, and it hurt. It hurt a lot. And I had 2/3 of a very important thought process. I thought, that gum hurt. And then I thought, gum's not supposed to hurt. And then I kept walking. Oh, slow down, Doc Brown. Don't drive that DeLorean. We're not in the future yet. About a minute later, Dana's friend comes running up to me, and she's like, "Are you aware that you are trailing a massive amount of blood behind you?" And I look down at my left hand, and my index finger it's peeled like a banana. It's a disaster area, and there's just blood streaming down my arm, and I finally have the last third of that very important thought process. I think, maybe that gum wasn't gum. And I look at the bottom of my shoe, and the gum was not gum, the gum was glass. And I sit down, and I start starting to pull the glass out of the bottom of my shoe, which is clearly the top priority in this situation where there is blood shooting out of my hands. And Dana runs up to me, and she says, "Are you okay?" And I am confident, because tonight is a night for love. And I say, "Of course I'm okay. It's just a flesh wound. A very bloody flesh wound. I just need a napkin." And Dana looks into my eyes, and she says, "Maybe you should go to the hospital." And this leaves me with a decision. I can go to the hospital in the ER on Halloween at a Big Ten school and be surrounded by a bunch of drunk idiots who hurt themselves, and I am surely not one of those people. Or I can continue chasing Dana's affections because I am a romantic blood god, and tonight is a night for love. I am obviously not going to the ER. The ER is for dummies. I look at Dana and I say, "It's just a little bit of blood." And Dana looks at me and says, "It's actually a huge amount of blood." And I say, "Well, what's Halloween without a huge amount of blood? Let's go back to my place." Which is the sexiest thing I've ever said to a woman. Other than, "I've been stalking you, obviously, for the last 4 years." And so we start making our way back to my place, but there's a problem. Again, this is Halloween in Madison, Wisconsin. It's an annual ritual where young idiots from across the Midwest descend upon the city, and the local police put on their own Halloween costumes, which is riot gear. And there is a wall of like 20,000 people, and they're probably less bloody, but definitely more drunk than we are. And we have to find our way through it. So I ball up my left hand into a fist to sort of slow the bleeding, and I grab Dana with my right, and we start our journey. We push our way between two people dressed as the Titanic. We break them in half. That was their shtick. They were pre-broken. And we wade our way through an endless sea of Austin's Power and Doctor's Evil, and someone runs up to me and grabs me and says, "What are you supposed to be?" And I shove my hand in their face, and I said, "I am Bloodfist, the man with the bloody fist. Isn't it obvious?" And after what seemed like 3 weeks at Woodstock 99, we finally make our way back to my place, and Dana takes a seat on my couch, and I say, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get my first aid kit. I don't have a first aid kit. I'm a college student. And so like a shitty MacGyver, I take a ball of toilet paper and shove it onto my finger and just wrap it up with Scotch tape. And I am a medical professional. I was a social work student. And I run back to the living room and discover the worst thing I can possibly imagine. My roommate Jeff and his friend are talking to Dana, and they're hitting on her by telling her what a piece of shit I am. And so Jeff and I have been living together for 3 years, and by that point, he hated my guts. And really, the only way he could win his night was by ruining mine. So they were just like shitting on me endlessly. Jeff's friend looks at me and looks at Jeff and is like, "Come on, bro. Why do you live with this loser? Look at this piece of shit." And then Jeff looks at Dana and looks at my hand and looks at me, and he says, "Bro, maybe you should go to the hospital." And at this point, I'm done. I've already survived, a sea of costumed idiots and a major injury. I'm not going to let these guys stop my night. And so I grab Dana, and I say, "Let's go back to your place." It turns out Dana lives a block away, which happens to explain a lot of things about the last few years. And we get into her apartment, and she shuts the door, and she spins around, and she looks at me, and she says, What did you mean when you said you've been seeing me for the last 4 years? I've never seen you before in my life. And I don't have an easy explanation for this one, so I grab her, and I kiss her, and it is literally everything I could possibly imagine it could be, and then suddenly everything goes black. And I wake up, and I open my eyes, and I'm in my own bed. And I look to the left, and my hand is stuck to the bed. It's caked in blood. I lift up my hand, and it's like that Thanksgiving turkey thing that you do with your hand, but it's a blood turkey. It's very sexy. And then I look over to my right, and I open my hand, and there's a small piece of paper in it, and it's got Dana's phone number in it. Maybe I should go to the hospital now. Thank you.